my first solo exhibition in Dallas was at a gallery called Sunny House in Carrollton. And the owner, back then I used to just kind of paint like celebrities, or I didn't really know how to create a series. I would just create what I thought was cool or what I thought someone would want to buy. And I remember saying how we used to have these powwows and we would just talk. And I was like, oh, I want to be considered like a serious artist. I want like serious work. I want to be like in museums. I want to be like in institutions. I want to be in exhibiting in other countries. And I just remember saying how I really want to create like a series. And I remember her saying, there is a story in your family.
Renaissance Man here. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to get more content from this channel.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Demarcus McGaughey. I am originally from Oak Cliff, Texas. I currently live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm 49 years old, about to be 50. Welcome to Kindred at the South Dallas Culture Center.
Well, tell us, Demarcus, about your early childhood growing up in Dallas.
Growing up in Dallas, my early childhood, let's see, let's take a moment. I had a very good childhood. Growing up in, I guess I grew up like in the Redbird area. Well, originally I grew up in Singing Hills. And before my sister was born, I grew up in Singing Hills with my parents. It was their first home. And then we migrated from Singing Hills to like the Redbird area. Um, when I just think of my childhood, I think of like great memories and great experiences. And I don't know, just great experiences. But I felt like, growing up in Oak Cliff, like Oak Cliff taught you how to be tough. Oak Cliff taught you kind of how to be an adult, how to survive. But some of the good moments is friendships and um, all the different things that we had, like that we had access to. Like I was having a conversation with my niece the other day about how Janet Jackson came to our elementary school. And so and she was like, "Why was Janet Jackson at your school?" And I was like, "Well, back then in Oak Cliff, there wasn't a big thing for a national artist to come to your school and to talk. Like we grew up kind of like I'm not gonna say like the cream of the crop, but it was like we just grew up and we just had those possibilities and those opportunities and that access. So there was nothing for you to see like a black business owner, like a black designer have their own store, a black pharmacist to have their own pharmacy, um, black clothing lines. Like we had our own like club, high school club for kids, like our own like Soul Train. And so these were different representations that we had growing up. So we had the possibilities there, but I think as a kid we kind of took those things for granted. But also, I believe that's where I really forged like my beginning friendships, and there's a privilege in that. Like even today, like I'm about to be 50, and when I'm in New York and I talk to people in New York about Texas, and they're like, "You're still friends with people from high school?" I'm like, "I'm still friends with people from preschool, elementary, junior high." So, um, that's who your tribe was and your core group. So growing up, great memories. Also, you had the lows of people passing away, things happening, which those are the things I think that taught you how to grieve, how to heal, how to, I guess, how to grow up. Unfortunately, those are things that we saw. You know, um, those are things that we just saw. It was just normal, but I think those are things that gave us like resilience and strength, to move forward. Um, from an art standpoint, it was always kind of like looked down to be an artist. So even though I was one of those kids who could illustrate and draw, there was always like maybe one or two in each class who could draw, and I was probably like one of two or three in my classes who could draw. But it was never something that was pushed to be that you could have a life with. You know, it was like, oh, starving artist, so you can't any money, you can't make any money, or you can't sustain yourself or your family with that. So that was a belief, a limiting belief that I had, I guess, created or saved in my head or someone projected, and I just grew up with that belief. And it wasn't until, like I said, I got maybe to high school, there was a movie called Boomerang that came out with Eddie Murphy, and it was so serendipitous because his name was Marcus. And so I saw this all black staff or cast that worked in an ad agency. And I was like, man, I would love to work in something like that. You know, I would love to work in advertising. And because of that movie, I decided to change my major from biology into advertising art. And that's how I got into the art field. I graduated from Carter High School. Did you actually get to interact with Janet Jackson? I did not. I just got to see her. Uh, how did you feel but seeing Janet? Like I said, it was I mean, there was this happiness, this giddiness, but it was like no big deal because my band, I don't know if you ever heard of this group called the Mac Band. They sing this song called Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue. Maybe, I don't know, I may be too old, you know, but my band director was in the Mac Band. And so they like recorded songs up under Babyface. And so like he was our he was our band director. So it was like he was giving us like the play-by-play descriptions of how they signed their record deal. Like they were national recording artists, you know, like and we knew them. Like it was just they were at our fingertips. So it was kind of like you just kind of thought the rest of the world was like that. You didn't know, you know. It was kind of like it was kind of like not that we lived in a bubble, but where I grew up, it was like majority of the kids, parents were at that time, their parents were still together. Majority of their parents were like all college educated, and we all just kind of had these same experiences until maybe we got to like junior high, where everything just kind of changed. You know, people start having other things going on, and life started to life basically. But yeah, like to have Janet Jackson. Who else do we have? Like I say like Young MC or somebody, but like High Five, like it was normal, you know. But I think as you get older, and when I talk to my friends, it was like we didn't realize what we had, you know. We didn't realize the access that we had, you know, at that time. When did you really realize you were in art? When was I into art? I don't know because, well, I always knew as a kid that I liked art, and ironically, my cousins were way better artists than I was. Like I was not. I come from a creative family, but my older cousins, at the time I was the youngest, and there used to be these magazines that you look in the back of the book, and they're like, if you can draw this picture, you know, mail it into Chicago, and you can become a real artist and stuff like that. My cousins would do it, so I would try to do it with them. I was just trying to be part of the team with them, and you know, we would mail it off and everything. And some of my friends would mail it off, and someone would come back from an art school saying, "Wow, your child is talented and gifted. You know, we'd like to put them in the school." But like, they never came back for me or anything like that. But then it was like in in elementary school, I had friends who could draw like maybe action figures or comic books and stuff like that. He could do it way better than I could. So I liked art, but I kept suppressing it. Like I wanted to. I remember there was one time, like maybe junior high school, like I really wanted to give it a shot. And I thought I was good enough, and I kind of knew I was good enough. And so I wanted to go to Booker T. Washington High School, arts magnet back then. And my parents wouldn't let me go. And I just remember how like distraught I was. Like I thought I could really, like I thought it could really like hone in on my skill. And it was the thing that made me feel special. And then I didn't go, so I ended up going to Carter High School, to where I took art courses, but it was like it wasn't anything serious, you know. So it was kind of like everyone could be like, oh, he can draw, like draw me, you know. And then I felt like it found me. I felt like it found me. Like I felt like it kept calling me, and I kept pushing it away. Like I can't do anything with you, you know. And then, like I said, when I got to college, I just remember my um, psychology professor or teacher in high school. She said, pick a major, something that you enjoy doing. And I was like, well, I enjoy art. I said, but I can't make any money off of it. She was like, pick something that you enjoy doing. So the compromise was advertising because I saw Boomerang. And so, again, I was in line for biology. And then my dad went to the restroom, and I told my mom, I was like, I heard someone say, get out of this line. And I felt like that was the universe speaking to me, like, get out of this line. You know, I didn't say anything. It was like, get out of this line. So I turned to my mom and I was like, hey, I don't want to do this. She was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to do art. My teacher said to pick something that you're really good at. And so she was like, you know, well, you better hurry up before your father comes back. And so we jumped out of the line, and the biology department, it was this long line. And then we get to the art department. Like the professor's not even there because nobody signs up for this stuff at Prairie View. He pulls up in this golf cart, and he has on like these overalls, and you know, and he was like, oh, so you want to be an art major? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm looking at him, my mom was like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, like, so I ended up doing it knowing that I wanted to do advertising and graphics. But the two professors that we had, they only knew fine arts. And I was like, man, I didn't come to school for this. You know, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. Whatever it is, I'm going to figure it out. And so I go like the whole 4 year, well, 5 years, learning like visual arts. Like we didn't even have computers back then. Like email wasn't even around then. And like again, there was one day I played hooky from class. Something said, go to this career fair. And I was like, I'm not going. I heard it again, go to this career fair. Get dressed up, put on a suit. I go to this career fair. And I've been at this school for 4 years. And the companies that show up are only for engineering majors, nursing, nothing for art. This one particular time, the fair is ending, and I walk up to this lady and I said, what are you, another engineering firm? And she was like, what are you, another engineering major? And I was like, no, I'm an art major. She was like, well, I'm an ad agency. And I was like, where have you been? I've been here for 4 years waiting for y'all. And she was like, we're here. But like, unfortunately, the fair is closing. So I was like, well, hey, you know, do you need any help, like taking your boxes and stuff to the car? That was my interview. Didn't know it. She was interviewing me on the way. And then she said, well, send me your resume, and sent her my resume, went in for an interview at the ad agency, and didn't realize I had been there before. And came back, told everybody in class that, hey, I got this interview with this ad agency, and I got the job. It was a summer internship. And I got the job and ended up working there. They ended up hiring me my senior year. So I worked there my whole senior year, and ended up getting a job after school. And yeah, that's when I knew I looked. Oh my God, I just realized I went. No, okay. That's what we want. Okay. You're doing exactly. Okay. Sorry, everybody. I can get long with it. I just had coffee. So yeah, so that's when I went into art, and I loved it. So I went into what I loved about art, or maybe graphic design, was I love the ability to take these clients or these people who had these like visions in their head and they couldn't express it artistically. And I would ask them questions and, you know, pull it out, and based off what they told me, I would create these designs. So I really love doing logos. I really love doing like corporate branding and corporate identity. And so like I would say, like for Texas or Dallas, driving around Dallas, there's so many traces of me in this city that people don't even know. Like when I see like designs from like the DART bus, you know, like there's designs and stuff that I created. When I see stuff like the Dallas Zoo, there's things that I created. When I see like the K104 logo, a lot of people don't know I designed that. When I see the KRMB 105.7 logo, I'm like, oh, I designed that, you know. when I see billboards, I'm like, oh my God, I designed it. Like people just don't know that I created those things. And so I really loved graphic design. But when I got into visual arts, it was when my best friend passed away. Um, my best friend's name was Tawfiq Muhammad, and he was an artist too. And he and I went to Prairie View together. So he was really like my first accountability partner. So um, we basically made each other better. He was a way better visual artist than I was. And so when he passed away, I think for like therapy, I started painting again just because, like, I guess it was just a way to make me feel closer to him or whatever. Or maybe I was grieving. And I started to realize I was getting a lot of opportunities that he wanted. So I got like my first residency um, out of the country where I went to Spain. And that was something that he always wanted to do. Like I remember he was trying to get his passport so he could go to Africa. And I was like, what do you want to leave the country for? You know, but now I see, you know, and so that's when I really started to love visual arts because I was able to tell my stories the way I wanted, and I wasn't pulling it out of other people's brains, you know, or their visions. It was like these are my stories that I wanted to tell. You know, these were like my techniques and my materials that I wanted to use. You know, so and then it became more of like this was the legacy that I wanted to leave, and in the process of that, it was like I have this mantra: create your life. So it was kind of like in the process, I was actually ministering or showing people how you can create your life, you know? So yeah, sorry about that.
No, that is awesome.
Okay.
You're doing fantastic. Is there anybody, whether it was your parents or friends or anyone, is there anyone at any point that was kind of a naysayer about being an artist that you went back later and was like, see, told you?
Man, it was a lot. It was a lot. I didn't do it like that. I didn't do it like that, but it was a lot. Like, I mean, like I couldn't do it to my parents because they're my parents. But my very first art teacher was my mom. My mom was a teacher. She was an education major, and so like she came out of college like she was a teacher, so she was always creative. So I actually learned how to color from her, and so and then but you know my mom and my dad. But here's another thing. But my dad was also a songwriter. And so my dad was a published songwriter, like he had written songs for other artists and stuff like that. So I came from a creative family, you know, artistic family, but I don't even think they even used their gifts. You know, my mom did a little bit when my mom used to do weddings, where she used to do like floral arrangements for weddings. So she used it that way. So I would watch her. And that was kind of like maybe one of my first representation for like entrepreneurship, you know. But I remember the plan that they had for me was like, okay, have a job and work on a job for like 20 something years and then you retire. Then you do what you want to do. And I was like, I don't have that kind of time. Like, time is valuable, time is precious. I don't even know if I'm going to be alive in 20 something years. So I might as well do something that I really want to do, something that I like. And I remember it was my parents' anniversary, which they're about to be 52 years in a couple weeks. Um, I did this like surprise thing for them. When I lived in Dallas, I had a design firm, and then I had a magazine called In-House Magazine. And I remember the magazine had just came out, and I had just got fired from Fossil Watches, where I was designing watches. But I remember I had surprised them and did this whole big thing. I got them in this limo. I had the limo take them to this restaurant at the Crescent Hotel, and gave the people like my credit card. And it was like whatever they wanted, just put it on this card. I had never done anything like that at that time, and so I just remember hearing my dad tell my mom like, "Oh wow, this boy might be something one day." And I always thought it was going to be my mom to say that, but when I heard my dad say that, it just like it was like the thing that kind of gave me the push, you know. And then, but the only time I've ever like threw it back in someone's face, like ha 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 ha, was I had a group of friends, and they'll totally know I'm talking about them. I had some group of friends. They're like older brothers, but at the time I didn't know them. They saw me walking through like the student center, and I had this like this that thing they call like a big apple hat or apple hat or whatever. They had one of these like little hats on and like a like a white shirt. I remember I was wearing a white shirt, brown suede vest, and some denim jeans. And I remember the guys laughing. I didn't know them, and they didn't know me. And I remember the guy saying like, "Who does he think he is? Francois Dubois? Like he looks like an artist and blah blah blah." And at the time, I wasn't an artist. And then maybe the next semester, they ended up being my next door neighbors. We lived in this community in Prairie View, and they were like my next door neighbors. And so they were always like, "Oh my God, that's Francois Dubois. That's Francois Dubois." And I was like, "Who?" And it was like, "Oh, Francois Dubois, like Pepe Le Pew, you know." And when I got into this residency program in France, I was in France for a month, and there was a self portrait that I did of myself, and I named it Francois Dubois. And so it was kind of like, even though it was a joke, it was kind of like, you know what? Well, let me say this: the positive spin was like, thank you for speaking that into my life. Because like now I am an artist. Like it was a joke, but it was like, yeah, they spoke into my life. But the petty side of me is like, you know, and I'm from Oak Cliff, so you know, we had some words, you know, but it's all a running joke about it now, though. But yeah.
That's amazing. Have you ever used your art or creativity to get a date or express your admiration of somebody?
Interesting. Have I ever used my art to get a? I've never used my art to get a date. I have used my art to express my love and my admiration for people. Um, no one like in particular, you know, but because I'd never done that because I remember someone telling me something like don't pimp your talents or don't pimp your gifts. So it's like I'm not give you know, it's like you don't give anything away for free, you know. But there's this saying like if an artist falls in love with you, you can never die, you know. Because I think they keep your memory. Like, and I think this exhibition is like that, you know. Some of the people I know, some of the people I don't know, but majority of the people that I do know is like I think I some kind of ways I keep their memories alive, you know. Um, but as far as like romantically or anything like that, I don't think I've ever painted or sketched anyone, like gave it to him as a gift or anything like that. But I think maybe through a grieving process. I think maybe through a grieving process, I've painted images of people that I loved. And I don't think I've ever even shown those. I think those paintings are like hanging in my studio, like on like on my loft area, like in my storage area. I don't, but I think, and in doing so, in doing it that way, what it did was it forced me to kind of like bring up emotions, you know, to deal with emotions. And I think once I paint them and I get those emotions out, it's like they're, you know, it's like they're gone. I think it's a way of me like to heal and to release. But I've never like painted someone's like, oh my God, I love you so much. Like here's a painting of you. I've never done that. I think I've done it more for myself.
What has been, maybe in general, the most difficult aspect of your journey as an artist? And is there any time that you can really think of where you thought to yourself, "Dang, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe this is a harder life than
Something difficult. I never thought like maybe I should be doing something else because I started painting. Like I feel like I came to the game late, and so I never thought that like oh maybe I should be doing something else or anything like that. because I was a business owner at the age of 23, maybe like 23, when I started my first business. And I've had a couple businesses open and fail. Um, but I never looked at them as failure. I looked at them as like lessons. Like, okay, so if I do this again, like next time, how am I going to do this? And it was still kind of the same thing. It was like businesses that I felt evolved. Like there was a clothing line at one point, then there was a design firm, then there was a magazine, then there was freelance. Then it was like I feel like each time I was just like getting better. Um, and I remember, so I think like now, like I'll have galleries say things to me like, Demarcus, are you? Which I know I was late today, but I'm always on time, always on time. And so I would have gallery owners say, like, dang, Demarcus, are you always on time? And I'm like, I was a business owner before I was an artist. So I take those fundamental principles that I learned as being a business owner and I carry it into like my artistry. It's like, so when I deliver my artwork, it's like I have an inventory list and me and the gallery or the director, we go through the list and we look at the pieces just like it's a rent-a-car, you know, and we're checking off, like, are there any scratches or marks that you see or anything like that? And then we sign off and it's like, you have your copy, I have my copy, you know. So I feel like this is something I'm supposed to be doing. The only time where I felt like, so I never really wanted to give up on this because I have this pact with myself. If I were to ever get a like full-time job again, I'm done. Like I'm done with this. Like I'm just gonna just go to my 9 to 5 and come home and that's it, you know. But so that's why I don't feel like that. But I'll tell you, like one of the toughest times that I had was the time I got hit with like a cease and desist on a painting. Um, so I went to undergraduate school at Prairie View A&M University, and I think a lot of times like schools they just teach you like principles and techniques and stuff like that. But they don't teach you the business side of art, you know, because there's a business side. You know, some artists that I've met, like they just want to create. Like they don't even want to talk about their art. They want someone else to talk about it for them, and that's fine. But I'm the type of artist like I've yet to meet someone that can speak about my art better than I can, you know, or even have the the energy to talk about my art the way that I would like, you know. And I think that's something that I'm looking for. But the biggest, I guess, disappointment that I had was I saw an image on Instagram, and the guy who posted, I said, "Hey, did you shoot this?" And he was like, "No." He's like, "I just love it." And so reluctantly, I just painted this image, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm just a dude from Oak Cliff, like nobody will never see it. And the painting went viral, like during the during the pandemic, like it just went viral. Not thinking anything of it, and then the photographer hits me up and was like, "Hey, you use my image," and the thing was, it's kind of like I knew better, but I thought like, "Oh, this is a cool picture." I thought nobody would never see it, and so his gallery hit me with like some terms and agreements. And at the time, at the time, I was scared of contracts. I didn't want to read them. I would just sign them, not even knowing what I was signing. Um, didn't even know anything about an attorney, you know. And I called people who I called friends who were attorneys. I called clients who I designed their logos, and like nobody hit me back. So that part was kind of like disheartening. And then a friend of a friend is friends with this famous artist. And he told her my situation, and she told him for me to reach out to her attorney. And he did it pro bono. Like he went over the contract with me. He taught me how to read my contracts. He taught me how to redline everything. He told me what to look for. He taught me to read contracts from, you know, front and back, but also read from back to front, because by the time you get to the end of the contract, you know, most people think you're going to be tired. So you just sign. So you start from the back to forward. And gave me some terms, told me to stand firm on the terms. And yeah, he told me, Demarcus, this is going to make you a better artist. And I felt like it did because like now I come to my artistry from a different point of view, and and I understand the importance of like imagery and licensing. And so like even with that, it's like I always ask artists like, what happens to your art when you've passed away? So even with that, it made me get my estate, my estate plans in order, and who's my executor of my estate, what can you do with my artwork, about the licensing and the copyrights of it, so it's like that way that my art can still live when I'm gone, so it's me creating a legacy for my executor, you know. So yeah, that was the only time was when I didn't get sued, but it was yeah, I didn't get sued, but it was like a cease and desist, and we had to come to some terms, and I had to some some payments that I had to make, to recoup that photographer, which I did, and I'm in good standing, with it. But I may never even post that painting again, even though I have the rights to use that particular painting, but just that one off. But I feel like it made me a better artist.
Okay, so let's talk about Kindred.
Okay.
What first inspired the concept for Kindred, and what was your process, whether it was a process specifically for this um, exhibit, or it's your overall process into
What inspired Kindred and the process behind it? My grandmother. A couple of things. It was my grandmother. Um, I originally had my first solo exhibition in Dallas was at a gallery called Sunny House in Carrollton. And the owner, back then, I used to just kind of paint like celebrities, or I didn't really know how to create a series. I would just create what I thought was cool or what I thought someone would want to buy. And I remember saying how we used to have these powwows and we would just talk. And I was like, oh, I want to be considered like a serious artist. I want like serious work. I want to be like in museums. I want to be like in institutions. I want to be in exhibiting in other countries. And I just remember saying how I really want to create like a series. And I remember her saying, there is a story in your family. And I was like, there ain't no story in my family. Like it's my Uncle John, it's my Uncle Bo, my Uncle Floyd, like my Uncle Anthony. Ain't no story there, it's like it's just my family. And I remember her saying, like, there's a story there, but you're just not looking hard enough. And then so I go to my grandparents' house and I'm just like observing. Like I just take on this observing role and I'm just like listening to people, my cousins. I'm like watching and I'm like, ain't no story, ain't no story. And so I go to my grandmother's house and for whatever reason I end up like stumbling on like her photo album. I'm just going through the photo album. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, who would I want to like draw or sketch into to a canvas? So I'm just taking pictures, like, oh, that's a cool picture, you know. And then I go to my residency in Spain, and I'm putting up all these ideas that I have on this board, and I'm looking like who do I want to sketch while I'm here? And then I realize, like, I don't even know who these people are. Like, I don't know their story, I don't know their names. Just like, oh, it's just a cool picture. So I was like, there's no story. So I just decided not to even paint those people. But when I come back to the States, I go to my grandmother and I say, hey, Medea, like, who are these people? And she's like, oh, that's Caribbean, that's Aunt Lois, that's such and such, and that's, Uncle Floyd. And I'm like, you know what? Let me record this because I'm not going to remember. This is how I'm thinking. Let me record this because I'm not even going to remember who these people are. And we're going through the book, and you can hear me. If I listen to the notes now, the voice notes, you can hear us like flipping the pages, and she's reporting, and she's describing the imagery. And that's just kind of how I took it. And then maybe like a year later, my grandmother suffers a stroke. And it's like, we can't even understand her anymore. And it was like, oh man, like she's talking to me and I have to like just go off my experience with her. But then it's like, I didn't really realize what I was doing. Like she was narrating our family history, and I was archiving our family history. Didn't really realize it, and then it was kind of like this was like right, kind of at the end of the pandemic, and where like Black stories were being erased, and people were finding out about Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. And I was like, oh my God, like I just archived my family history with her. And so then when she passed away, I ended up getting a residency in the Hamptons. And this guy, Jeremy Dennis, he took his grandmother's home and he turned it into a residency. And so I'm known for doing these really large black and white faces, like portraits. But while I was there, I was grieving because my grandmother had passed. And I was like, I just don't feel like doing anything big. Like, I just want to do something small. And I remember people saying, Demarcus, I love your work, but number one, I can't afford it. Number two, your pieces are so large, I don't have the space for it. So I started wanting to do something small for like memory keepsake. And so remembered that story of there's a story in your family, you're just not looking hard enough. So I went back and listened to the voice notes with my grandmother. And that's how Kindred got started. And they started with some real small, like 4x4 paintings. And it was a way for me to like kind of heal because that land that I was on, yeah, it was his grandmother's land. It was their family land. So it just felt ancestral. It felt meaningful. And the ironic thing was with Kindred was didn't really realize what I was creating, but it was like I just felt like I just did it and didn't care if anybody bought anything. I just did it because I just felt like it just needed to be done. And that's kind of how I got started. And then I ended up having I submitted for this gallery in Brooklyn, and I ended up winning like that particular month to have a solo exhibition. And that was the first time Kindred was shown. And then um, again, it was just like opportunities came. And so it was like this one artist couldn't make their deadline for their solo show. And so the museum was like, hey, do you have any work? And I was like, yeah, I have a show ready to go. And it was Kindred. That's how I ended up getting my first solo museum show. And then from there, it was like there was another exhibition in Harlem, same thing. Kindred was ready to go for that. And then North Carolina, same thing. It was because I was prepared. I didn't have to make anything. The show was ready to go. And then there was a mural project, and they like really wanted this imagery, So Kindred has been like one of my most impactful exhibitions or series because number one, I'm able to share like ancestral history and legacy and spirituality and love and family, but also it makes people think about their family, their grandmother, their grandparents, the images that they have. And one of my goals is to kind of show people how to archive their family stories and then how to protect it.
Can you tell us about it uniquely
This painting is uniquely designed branches. This is actually the largest piece in this exhibition, in the series. Also, I don't think I've ever created a piece this large in this series. And it's an imagery of Black children with crowns on their heads and Bible scriptures in the back. And this is originally an image of my mother and her siblings and her first cousins and other children in the community of the church that they went to in Oakwood, Texas. And it's a group, what I love about it, it's a group shot, number one, because most of the imageries are here, it's like single portraits. This is a group experience. And so, like, I know these people, like, these are my aunts, and my uncle. He's the only male in this painting. But my mother's right in the middle in the fluorescent pink. And so my mother, her sister Lois, her cousin Glenda, her cousin Dina, her sister Janice, my uncle Floyd, her cousin Mildred. Like I grew up with these people. These people like raised me. And so they all have something special that they know how to do, and I don't even think they realized it. But me being an observer, like I realized all the different things that they know how to do, and so again, it's about like having access and privilege, like just not knowing what you have access to, not knowing that your gifts are special, and I feel like we all uniquely have a gift. There's something that we can do better than anybody else in the world. Like, if you know how to cook, there may be someone else in your family that's a good cook, but no one's gonna be able to cook a particular dish the way that you can cook that dish. And so that's what this is from. And so the scripture is John 14, chapter 14, verse 15, on the vine and the branches. And so the crowns represent the different gifts that they have, the spiritual gifts that they possess with. And so this is my way of showing like every single person is born with the gift, and it's their responsibility to use those gifts, to use those gifts to impact the world. And a lot of times we have gifts, and someone might have told you like, "Oh, that's stupid," or "That's dumb," or "You can't do that." You're gonna be a starving artist, and it's like, do you listen to those people, or do you actually use those gifts? And so that's where that comes from. It's just like I just wanted people to see a representation of young Black children with royalty, with crowns on the head, paying homage to Basquiat. But then also those crowns they represent their gifts. So yeah, like I noticed like growing up, like even myself, I can remember saying like, oh, someone can do something better than I can. Okay, they can do that, but it doesn't mean that I don't have anything to, or I don't have anything to offer or anything to give. And so that's what that painting is. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Um, what impact, if you could decide, what impact would you like Kindred to have on the world? And what's your hope or aspirations for future creative projects?
What impact would I like Kindred to have on the world, and my hopes for future projects? Um, with Kindred, my hopes and aspirations for Kindred is that, okay, so now I feel like I'm speaking into existence and like the universe is listening. Um, with Kindred, my hopes for Kindred is to one day, number one, for it to live on way past me. Um, that the people in these portraits and these paintings um, will be seen in like different spaces and different places, to show it in as many represent safe representational places that it can, in different states, in different cities, in different countries, uh, for them to be icons, um, for them to be images of successful, loving, powerful Black people, who created their life. Um, I would love for one day for Kindred to be in museums, to where people would travel from all around the world just to experience this exhibition. People to see my grandmother and say, "Wow, that reminds me of my grandmother." Oh wow, they call her Medea. Oh my God, we call my grandmother Medea. Or to see the different hymns and to know the words to those spiritual hymns, or um, to see children and to be like, "Wow, they're special. I'm special too," you know, or to see um, like my great 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 grandfather and be like, "Oh wow, he was enslaved, and this is the family that came after him." Like um, the wildest dreams of my ancestors, the wildest dreams of my parents, for um, my niece and my cousins and my family after me to be proud to say like that's my family, like that's where I come from, you know. Um, Again, like I would like for it to be. I mean, it is a traveling exhibition, but I would love for it to be um, in different spaces, in different spaces. Yeah, this is it. Did I answer?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
And what about
future projects.
What do you think will be next
With the Kindred series, I would love for it to evolve beyond canvases. Um, like if I can figure out a way to create an experience, like maybe walking in here or walking into a space and you can actually hear my grandmother speaking. Or there's video montages of my family, or to utilize the quilts that my grandmother made for us, to put those. So it's like my grandmother and I are having like a dual exhibition, you know, maybe to even recreate like her living room, you know. I would love something like that. And I'm just gonna say it. And they always say like, don't say your dreams to people, but I want to use this as like archiving also too, and to turn her home into a residency, a place where other artists from all over the world can come, feel safe, feel secure, be educated, network, and create art in her home, and ultimately turn that space into a homage and legacy of my family. And so like different things that I grew up with, like different, like the garden would be named after someone, like the barn would be named after someone, like the roads would be named after different members of my family. And ultimately, where when an artist comes to create there in the residency, they leave a piece behind saying that they were there. And then ultimately turning her or our land and property into a place where people will come from all over the world to experience my family, but also to experience the different art of the artists that have been there. So there'd be sculpture gardens, and there'd be like a gallery space, and we would have gallery openings and we would exhibit new artists. And so, yeah, and I would like to know that it all came from Kindred. So if we look back on this like 50 years from now, and I'm gone, and it's happening. Hey, I said it was Hassani first, so we here. So
just know the South Dallas Renaissance is going to do our part to keep that legacy going. I appreciate doing this interview, appreciate who you are, appreciate your creativity, and appreciate the past, present, and future, and everything that you are providing to the world.
thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. Like, um, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the people watching this and that will watch this. I appreciate you for actually documenting this as well. And just the impact of what you are doing. Also, like growing up, like we didn't have that. So the fact that you're even doing that, like that means the world. So anything that you got, man, like I'm here to support too. So,
Appreciate it.
thanks, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
All right.
All right, man.
That's a wrap, y'all.